Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. This is an educational channel where we empower you to go out there and win. My name is Martha, and today we are looking at 5 most common job interview questions. I take a different approach to this. Rather than just give you the questions and the possible answers, I also look at why employers ask these questions. This will definitely empower you and help you at different interview questions rather than just memorizing possible answers. You get to adapt your answers to different interview situations. Welcome. So, the first question we'll be looking at is tell me about yourself. Now, this is a very common question, and you will have different forms of it. Others will directly say, tell me about yourself. Others will say something like, tell me about background, or give me a run through of your resume, or basically that's the different way in which this will be put across. And it's usually a good opening question that allows the interviewer or interviewees or the interviewee to settle into the interview. So if you're facing a panel or you are simply facing one person, it's basically an opening question. And what is the interviewer and what are the interviewers looking for? They are basically looking at your communication skills, how you articulate yourself, how you articulate your value in relation to what you have or you are interviewing for. They're looking at how enthusiastic you are, the interest that you are showing on the role by your body language, just basically how you're communicating or expressing yourself concerning that role. They're also looking for how well you understand the role that you have applied for, because you are not giving them a background of your family or where you stay or any uh, personal details. And personal details here will be your family, whether you're a firstborn or a secondborn, and depending on how this has been asked, you perhaps will take the approach of talking about your education, your qualifications, experiences as relate to or how they relate to the role. Now, you will want to craft a response to that specific role and even the organization. And this is why doing a search of the organization, having done your homework before the interview, is very, very useful. The other thing that you may want to know at this point is who your audience is. You will not give the same response at all interview stages. Perhaps you're going for a role that has several stages. You want to craft it depending on the role. If you're talking to a recruiter on the phone and they're simply doing a phone interview, you will not necessarily get into the technical aspects of your role, perhaps, or your current role, or your qualifications and skills as far as the role is concerned. You may perhaps simply talk about your qualifications and your education. But if you are talking to an interview panel that consists of technical staff, then you want to give your qualifications, and you also want to talk about your skills, hard skills that are related to that specific position. And if you're talking about your current role, perhaps you're trying to move from one position to the other, then you may be able to get into a lot more detail as far as technical skills are concerned. So that is what I mean when I say you need to understand and know your audience. Then I've just explained that it will help you to tailor your response appropriately. Then as you do this, you also want to watch the body language of your audience, because there's a tendency to ramble on and on and on about yourself. Yeah, as you watch the person you're speaking with, or the panel that you're speaking with, then you are able to see whether you are connecting with them or whether you lost them at some point, and that enables you to adapt your response appropriately. Then how you express yourself is key at this point, because that is actually what they're looking for. I have been in interview panels where not just myself, but the rest of the interview panel indicate that they lost the person at the start when they asked this question, tell me about yourself, either because someone was not able to express themselves clearly or because they were simply, it looks like they are not prepared themselves because they are not systematic in the way they're even expressing um, themselves or their qualifications, or they're very negative in the way they are explaining themselves. The sentences they're using, they are basically negative, or they're using a very low tone, so that interviewers or an interviewer is constantly saying, pardon, trying to understand what it is that you are talking about. So the other question that is common is, why should we hire you? And again, just like the first question, this will also not necessarily be asked directly as it is, why should we hire you? Sometimes someone will say something, or the question will be like, so what do you bring to this role? Um, why are you better than your, the other people that we are interviewing? So it will be asked in various ways, not necessarily very aggressively. It will definitely be asked in different ways. But the essence of it is that the employer is trying to listen to you, articulate the value that you bring to the organization or the value that you bring to this role. Do you know what you're bringing to this role? Do you understand the job role? Do you understand the department in which that role, that role is centered? Do you understand the place of that role or the department in the organization? Now, when you run through the job description of the role that you are interviewing for, or you basically run through the information package that was sent to you, maybe via email in preparation for this interview, or perhaps the introduction that was given to you at the start will help you understand where that specific role or the role of that job in the organization. So do you understand the company? As part of your research or your pre-interview research, you need to have, you know, done a thorough search or research of that organization. The other thing that the employer is looking for at this stage is the confidence in which you articulate yourself and the confidence you have about what you are bringing or the value you are adding, you will add to that role if given the opportunity. So I just put together a sample answer. Again, this is not a straight jacket and this is not the only way you can respond to this question, but this is just a sample answer to give you an idea about how you can craft your own. This role requires someone who understands digital media, and I have for the last 2 years worked as a digital media manager, where I mainly dealt with, and then you go ahead and give some of the things that you did that are relevant to the current role that you're interviewing for. My ability to, then now you pick out skills that are relevant to the role or abilities that are relevant to the role. And how you will pick out those skills is when you look at the job description or when you look at the job requirements for that position. And they may not have listed all the skills that are relevant to the position, but if you have worked in a similar position before, you may know or you may be aware of some skill that they have not indicated but were very relevant to the previous role that you had. So if you, having read through this specific role, you realize that there's a skill that they probably haven't put across that may be important, you can bring it in because it might just be the competitive advantage you'll have over other candidates. Then if you're a fresh graduate, you perhaps will go into your studies and pick out, because you may not be having experiences, so you may pick out some courses you did or some skills that you picked up during your studies or a project that you worked on that is relevant to the skills that are being that are being sought by that specific employer. So you can maybe end it with, this gave me the opportunity to understand client expectations and potential problems to look out for. I believe that this background will be useful in this position if given a chance or given an opportunity. The other question I'll take two of them because they are related. Tell us about a time you made a mistake, or sometimes it will be framed as tell us about a time you failed. Someone else will say, what is your weakness, or what do you consider to be your weakness? These are related in a way, and I'll try to put them together but also look at them separately. Tell us about a time you failed, or tell us about a time that you made a mistake. What is the employer looking for when they ask you this question? They are not looking for, several stories of your failures and that's it. They are looking at your ability to acknowledge your mistakes and imperfections. Now, there are questions that employers will ask in order for them to get your skills and your technical skills. But now, this is an example of let me use the word soft skills or attitudes. An employer is already looking for emotional, intelligence. So your ability to acknowledge your mistakes and imperfections, because how you have done this in the past is an indicator of how you are going to do this in the future, and the future is the how you will behave in the role if you're given the opportunity to work with this organization. So it is important to have prepared for this question in advance, because then you'll be able to pick out an instance where you failed, one that will, you do not necessarily want to look like you will be a failure in the future, but you want to appear like someone who learned from a previous mistake that you made. And then you are not basically picking any mistake you've made throughout your lifetime. You're picking a mistake that is job relevant or relevant to the opportunity that you're applying for. If you're a fresh graduate, while you are studying, there are certain things that you may have done. Uh, Let me use leadership as an example. You probably had a leadership role and you failed in a certain way. So again, when I say job relevant, it does not necessarily have to apply to technical skills. It can be a soft skill such as leadership, or it can be something such as problem solving, that is relevant to the opportunity that you're applying for. So it's an attitude issue. How do you handle failure? How do you handle mistakes that you have made? Do you learn from them? Do you acknowledge them? How do you handle the people around you who are affected by the mistake that you have made? So these are some of the things that the employer is trying to see from this question. And so how you respond to it will be informative or not informative for the employer. So again, you will be working in a team, or in some of these roles, you will be expected to work with others. Actually, most of the roles you'll be expected to work with others. And how will you do this? In the event that you make a mistake, how will you work with your team? Do you accept correction? Do you accept to be critiqued as part of a team? Do you have good team working skills? Yeah, because how you approach mistakes is most certainly how you will approach mistakes in others. Yeah, and how you will approach your own mistakes in the future. Do you have courage to face errors that you have made in the past, and do you have courage to make corrections? Do you have courage to apologize maybe to other people that you have been working with and were affected in one way or the other in such mistakes? And there are errors that you might make that will cost the company or the organization so much. So you do not want to be in that space where a potential employer is thinking this person is going to be a liability, to us. So how do you answer such a question? All of us have made mistakes in the past, but a key is how we get ourselves out of that situation. So I will use a simple structure just to help you to be able to think about it. There are several structures that you could use for this, but I will simply use this one, STAR, because it is simple to remember. So the word STAR, or the acronym STAR, that stands for situation, task, action, and result. It is also very helpful for behavioral type of questions where you ask, tell us about a time that you encountered a difficult customer, or a time when you encountered a difficult client, or a time you had to deal with an ethical issue. So there are many behavioral kind of questions that might be responded to using this STAR technique. So in this example, tell us about a time you made a mistake. You will want to talk about the situation or the circumstances around that. So probably you will tell us, or you tell the interviewer about what you are doing at that point, what was expected of you in terms of task, what was the task at hand. Perhaps the task at hand was you were delivering something to a client, so that perhaps was the task. So action, where action is concerned, you talk about where did you fail. So you are delivering this maybe this project, or you are making a presentation on a specific project to a client. Where did you fail? So probably in your organization, the expectations are that when you are making a presentation, you need to you probably need the specific steps that you need to take in regards to delivering something to a client, and you failed to do that, or you missed one of those because either you had already created rapport with the client, and the client did not take it very well, and so they sent in a complaint that you did not do A, B, or C as was expected by that client. Now, when you realized your mistake, what did you do? That is also still covered under action. What did you do? Did you apologize? Is it something you realized immediately, or you realized it later when your manager pointed it out to you? What did you do about it? Now, this is the most critical aspect of this answer. What did you do about that mistake? How you behaved in that instance is an indicator of how you are likely to behave in the future. And then what was the outcome? That's the result. What was the outcome of either the mistake or or both actually? It's relevant to indicate both. What was going to be the outcome? What was the outcome of your error? And what was the outcome of the action that you took to rectify the situation? So perhaps you in our previous example, you failed, you encountered this client and they complained about something that you failed to do. The outcome probably was that they responded, or they filed a complaint at your organization. So when they did that, your boss called you in, or your manager called you in, and you had to have a discussion. Perhaps your organization had procedures that were required in such an instance. Did you follow through with those? And in addition to the requirements by the organization, what happened to you? Hopefully you were not fired for the error, but you were able to learn from it. What lesson did you take out of that specific situation? I spent a little bit more time on that because this is a very common question, and it is a loaded question, and it can be a make or break for you. The next question that I indicated was related was, what is your weakness? Now, this is usually very difficult for entry-level roles or just new graduates, because there's a tendency of wanting to hide your weakness. Well, it is a human thing that you want to hide our weaknesses. But when an employer is asking for this, they're not necessarily trying to expose you or trying to put you in a vulnerable position. What they're trying to see is your self-awareness. This is also connected to the other question, tell me about your strengths, or what are your strengths, or what are you strong in, or what do your colleagues, peers say you are very good in. Yeah. This question actually sometimes can also be asked, what performance related issues have you had in the past, or maybe negative. Yeah. So the employer is looking for self-awareness. Do you understand yourself enough to know your weaknesses and even your strengths? Yeah. What is your attitude towards those weaknesses? Because again, the attitude you have towards your weaknesses is the same attitude you're likely to have towards other people. And then the employer is also trying to pick up red flags. And the red flags is the way you fail to articulate your weaknesses, or the way you simply articulate, or the kind of weakness that you pick to articulate at this point. They're also looking at your confidence and the courage you have to face your weaknesses, just similar to what the previous question has indicated. They're also looking for humility. Again, soft skills, emotional intelligence, because emotional intelligence has got to do with how you will be, connecting with people around you, your colleagues, with your bosses, people probably that you are supervising, and also clients from that in that position. The employer wants to anticipate how you will behave in the future. So they're looking at maybe scenarios like performance reviews. During our performance reviews, we'll be looking at both things that you've done very well and areas where you need improvement. So they want to, gauge how you may behave in such situations. And they may also just want to identify areas of growth. Perhaps in your discussion, they have identified that you are the right person for the role. So they're looking at potential areas of growth that now in your subsequent conversations, they will now probably look at a little bit more, so that they can identify areas of growth for you and how they can support you, and also whether you're a good team fit. Because again, if you tend to have a weakness in an area that is already identified in the team as an area of weakness of several other people in the team, then they want to find someone perhaps who is stronger in that area, so that the team complements each other. Yeah. So how do you answer this question? One key thing is that you want to share a real shortcoming that you are preferably working on. So you're simply not going to say something like, I come late to work. You can never say that, definitely. But you want to talk about something that you are already working on, so that again, maybe looking back at the star structure that I had given earlier, you want to look at the situation, you want to look at a task. You may not use the entire S, T, A, and R, but at least it will give you some sort of structure on the same. So again, it is not acceptable to give a cliche response like I'm a perfectionist. People say I work too hard. Those ones are not acceptable in that situation. So maybe something like, I'm not very good in public speaking. And then you go ahead and say, to help you with that, there are certain steps that you have taken. So perhaps you have been volunteering to take up public speaking opportunities for one or two people. You are not yet courageous enough to do 1,000 people or maybe 500 people, but at least you have taken steps, and you are able now at this point to maybe give a presentation before a group of 10, 20, 30, or 40. Very specific ways in which you have worked on that weakness, and how probably you even have an accountability person. If you are someone who is working, you can even give instances where you have been able to overcome some of the fears or anxieties you have around public speaking. So public speaking is just one of them. And I pick public speaking because it's relevant to most job situations. You may not necessarily be speaking in front of 1,000 people or 500 people, but in every job situation, you'll either be making a presentation before your colleagues, you'll probably be pitching something before a client. So there are many opportunities for public speaking in any role that you will occupy in most job situations. Another question, and this should be the last question, is, where do you see yourself in 5 years? There are many other questions, but I've simply picked 5 that are the most common. There are many others. Why do employers ask this? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Or what are your plans for the next 5 years? Or what are your career goals for the next 10 years? Many will use between 3 to 5 years. They're not simply asking this because they want a rundown of all your 10,000 goals, career goals. They're simply looking at your fit with the company, particularly the company culture, maybe the growth culture of the organization. They're also looking at your ambition. Are you likely to be loyal? I mean, if that specific organization is looking for loyalty or people who are likely to give them a long duration of time, uh, then this question will be important to them. In some organizations, they have a growth plan where after a number of years, they want to move you to a different organization. So they want to see what plans you have, what are your goals, so that they see whether this fits within theirs. They also want, particularly for fresh graduates, they're looking for self-starters, people who have leadership, people who are proactive. I mean, you have a plan for your life, or you have goals. You're simply not just there because it demonstrates leadership. It does demonstrate that you will be a proactive person, even in the organization. Yeah, but you're also not necessarily because you will say that as part of the tips for this responding to this question, this is also critical for you because it might lead to a discussion where the organization will tell you about their growth plans and opportunities or the growth opportunities that are probably available, again depending on the organization. And this is important to you. Maybe you will have found out already as part of your pre-interview research. But if you will not have found that out, perhaps they will give you that information. So it's important for your own, in that part of interviewing the organization, trying to know whether this is also a good fit for you. So it's a really important discussion. So I've already indicated what the employers are possibly looking for at this point. And you don't necessarily need to go into very detailed discussion of your 5-year plan. You can simply give a high level view of where you're thinking you want to be. So it's safe to talk about your education or the kind of skills you will have wanted to add on yourself. So don't talk about position. Don't say you'll want to have been a manager or you want to be a CEO or many of those other things. Why? Because one life is hardly a linear path where after 2 years you are at this level, at 3 years you are at this level. But when you talk about the skills that you want to have attained at a particular position, it's easier to work towards attaining certain skills, either by adding to your education, and education doesn't necessarily need to be formal education. It can be the various paths that we have for informal learning. Perhaps the organization has a training path and a learning path that you can take advantage of, and this will help you. This will help you also, maybe start off a discussion on how you can grow yourself in the organization. And many times when you grow in skill and you grow in experience, you also grow hopefully in the level that you work in an organization. Thank you very much for taking time to listen to us and watching this video. If you have further questions or you would like us to cover a lot more, please comment on the video. Comment below on areas you'd want me to cover in the future or you want us to cover. But you also do interview assistance, like interview coaching. We also do mock interviews, and if you want further assistance, you can contact us on that contact address. If you found this video helpful to you, please like. You can also share with others who are probably waiting to go for interviews, and you can subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. Thank you, and see you again later. Bye-bye.